I was found as an abandoned baby near the hospital. My whole life turned out to be a lie. Now I'm fighting to find out who I really am. I found out I wasn't their real child on a rainy Tuesday, sitting on the cold floor of our basement, clutching a box that smelled like old paper and forgotten dreams. My name is Erin Mitchell, I'm 25, and I work as a barista at a little coffee shop downtown where the espresso machine squeals like a dying animal if you don't treat it just right. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have told you my family was normal. Clothes even. Mom baked pies on Sundays. Dad coached my high school soccer team even though I mostly sat on the bench. Thought, we were good. Perfect even in that boring, safe way. Then I opened that box. It wasn't even supposed to be my business. I was helping them clean out the basement before Mom's surgery. Dust floated in the flashlight beams like tiny ghosts, and there it was, a battered shoebox tied with a thin, fraying ribbon. My name Erin was scrawled across the lid in my mother's loopy handwriting. Inside, a hospital bracelet, a letter from a lawyer I didn't recognize, and a faded photograph of a woman holding a baby. A woman who wasn't my mother. I sat there, heart punching the inside of my chest, reading and rereading the same words. Adoption finalized, birth parents unknown, sealed records. It felt like someone had grabbed the floor under me and yanked it out from under my body. And right there, in that dusty basement that smelled like mold and regret, I realized my entire life was a lie. I don't even remember standing up. One minute I was kneeling there, clutching the box like it was a bomb about to go off, and the next I was staggering up the basement stairs, the weight of the truth dragging at my arms. The house felt different. Too big. Too quiet. Like all the love I thought was stitched into the walls had been ripped out in one violent tear. The kitchen lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow across the counter where Mom's favorite blue teapot sat. It was cracked now, I realized. Hairline fractures spiderwebbing across the glaze. Had it always been like that? Had I just never noticed? I sat at the kitchen table, the box in front of me, and tried to breathe. My hands were shaking so badly the bracelet clattered against the wood like tiny bones. I kept thinking they lied to me. My whole life. They lied. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the storm outside to get worse. Rain battered the windows. The gutters gurgled. The smell of wet earth drifted through the screen door. At some point I heard the front door open. Boots thudding on the mat. My dad's voice muffled calling, "Erin? You home?" I wanted to answer. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I just sat there like a broken doll as they both came into the kitchen. My dad shaking rain from his jacket. My mom pale and tired from the hospital visit. They froze when they saw me. Their eyes went to the box immediately. Then back to me. Mom's face crumpled. Dad let out this low, helpless sound like someone punched him right in the gut. Where did you find that?" Mom whispered, her voice cracking on the words. I couldn't speak. I just stared at them. These two people I had called Mom and Dad for 25 years. These two people I loved. A sob clawed its way up my throat and burst out before I could stop it. The sound didn't even feel human. It felt like something ancient and wounded had woken up inside me and was trying to tear its way free. Mom reached for me, but I jerked back so hard the chair legs screeched against the floor. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Why didn't you tell me?" I choked out, my vision swimming. Dad opened his mouth, closed it again. He looked old. Smaller somehow. "We were going to," he said finally. "Someday. When you were ready." "When I was ready?" I screamed, the words echoing off the kitchen walls. "I'm 25. When were you going to tell me?" "At my funeral." The silence that followed was so thick it felt like drowning. Only the storm outside dared to make a sound. Mom sat down across from me, her hands trembling as she tried to reach for the hospital bracelet. Her wedding ring flashed under the harsh kitchen lights. I noticed, distantly, that she wasn't wearing her usual perfume, just the faint, sour smell of the rain and something metallic like old blood. "I couldn't lose you," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "You're ours. No matter what. You're ours." But that didn't fix it. Nothing could fix the feeling blooming in my chest. This horrible, aching emptiness, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me hollow. I grabbed the box and stood up so fast the chair toppled behind me. "I need time," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. Then I was running out into the rain, the box pressed to my chest, my whole body shaking so violently I could barely keep my footing on the slick sidewalk. The rain was freezing, soaking through my hoodie in seconds, but I didn't care. I needed to be anywhere but there. I ended up at the park 2 blocks away. The same park where Dad taught me to ride a bike. The same park where Mom used to pack peanut butter sandwiches and sing off-key while I ran around the swings. I collapsed onto one of the old, rusted swings and let the box fall into my lap. I cried until my throat was raw. I cried for the little girl who thought she knew who she was. I cried for the parents who had loved me and lied to me. I cried for the future that now felt like it had cracked and splintered, just like that stupid blue teapot. I was alone. So alone. And worst of all, I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I barely moved. I sat on the swing at the park until the rain stopped, until the stars blinked out from behind thinning clouds, until my hoodie clung to me like a second skin, heavy and ice cold. The box sat on my lap like an accusation, like a question I couldn't answer. When the sun finally started bleeding into the sky, I walked home. My sneakers squelched with every step, soaking wet and freezing, but I barely felt it. My whole body was numb. Numb except for my mind. My mind was a war zone. What else had they lied about? Were my memories even real? Did they ever love me, or did they just settle for me? I slipped into the house without making a sound. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee, smells that should have felt like comfort but now just made my stomach twist. Everything looked normal. The pile of junk mail on the counter. The throw blanket on the couch. Normal. Lies. I crept up the stairs to my room, shut the door and locked it. The sound of the lock clicking felt like the only solid thing in my entire universe. I pulled the letter from the box again, smoothing it out on my bedspread. The paper was soft, almost brittle with age. The lawyer's name was some firm I'd never heard of, Bennett and Charles LLP. I Googled it on my cracked old phone. Nothing. No website. No reviews. Not even a listing. It was like they never existed. I pressed the hospital bracelet to my chest, squeezing my eyes shut. The tiny plastic band still had the faint smell of antiseptic on it. My real birthday was printed on it, but the hospital name wasn't the one on my birth certificate. St. Agnes Community Hospital. Never heard of it. My hand shook as I Googled that too. Gone. Shut down 23 years ago for irregularities in record-keeping and internal investigations. No official closure reason given. Just gone. A black hole started to open in my chest. Who am I? Where did I really come from? Why would they hide this from me? I thought about every time Mom brushed my hair out of my face when I was little, every time Dad cheered too loudly at my terrible middle school plays, every Christmas morning they spent spoiling me rotten. Was that real? Was any of it real? I tore open my closet, dragging out old yearbooks, baby albums, scrapbooks, anything I could get my hands on. I needed proof. Something. Anything. Photo after photo after photo, and in every single one, there I was, a smiling little girl with tangled brown hair and missing front teeth. Always in the center. Always surrounded by them. But the edges of the photos blurred now as if my brain couldn't hold onto them anymore. Was it love or was it guilt? My heart slammed against my ribs as I stumbled across an old VHS tape labeled Aaron's 5th birthday. Hands shaking, I dug my old DVD/VHS player out of the closet, dust flying into the air and making me cough. I jammed the tape in. The screen flickered to life. There I was, blowing out candles on a lopsided cake. Screaming when a magician pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Laughing so hard I almost fell off my chair. And behind the camera, Dad's voice, warm, proud, real, saying, "That's my girl." I sat there on the carpet, fists balled in my lap, blinking back tears. They loved me. I could see it. I could hear it. And still, this knot of betrayal twisted in my gut. A snake that wouldn't untangle no matter how much I wanted it to. Because love built on lies still hurts. Because I wasn't the person I thought I was and they weren't the people I thought they were either. I hugged my knees to my chest, rocking slightly, the VHS tape hissing softly in the player like a ghost breathing in my ear. My head throbbed. My chest ached. My entire identity felt like a house of cards that had been blown to pieces in one breath. Maybe they loved me. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I was just a replacement for a child they couldn't have. Maybe I was a secret shame. A violent urge rose inside me to throw the box out the window, to set it on fire, to erase everything. To go back to before. But I couldn't. Because even if I tried to forget, the truth would still be there, curled up in the corners of my mind like smoke, staining everything I touched. I sat there as the sun climbed higher, spilling warm light across the room. It didn't feel warm to me. It felt like a spotlight, exposing every crack, every lie, every wound. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know whether I belonged anywhere. I didn't decide to confront them. It just happened. Like a dam breaking. I came downstairs still wearing my soaked hoodie and pajama pants, my hair a matted mess against my neck. The house was too bright, too normal. Morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, catching the dust motes swirling in lazy spirals. The smell of pancakes filled the air, syrupy and sweet, like childhood mornings. Like lies. Dad sat at the table, pretending to read the paper. Mom hovered by the stove, flipping pancakes with shaking hands. They looked up when I came in, their faces hopeful, tired, scared. As if love could fix this. As if breakfast could glue the broken pieces of me back together. I stood there for a second, the words clawing their way up my throat, hotter than blood, sharper than bone. I could have stayed silent. Could have let them pretend a little longer. Instead, I heard myself say, voice shaking, "Tell me everything. Now." Dad lowered the paper slowly. His hands trembled. His coffee mug clinked against the saucer. Mom turned off the stove with a sharp snap and pressed her palms flat against the counter, breathing like she was trying not to cry. "We didn't mean to hurt you," Dad said finally, his voice hoarse. We thought we were protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" I spat. "The truth? From knowing who I am." Mom sank into a chair, her face crumbling. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Defeated. "You were abandoned," she whispered. "Left at St. Agnes. No note. No name. Just you." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the counter to stay upright. Abandoned. Not even given away to someone. Just left. Dad's voice broke into the silence. "We were on the adoption list for years. We couldn't have children. When they called us." His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. "We said yes. No questions. You were perfect. You were ours." I pressed the heels of my palms into my eyes until I saw sparks behind my lids. "Why didn't you tell me?" I rasped. Mom reached for me, and this time I didn't pull away. Her hand was warm. Shaking. "Because we were scared," she said. "Scared you'd feel like you didn't belong. Scared you'd think we weren't really your family." Tears streamed down her face, cutting pale tracks through her makeup. Dad wiped at his own eyes roughly, like he was angry at them for betraying him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash something. I wanted to crawl into my old bed and pretend the world hadn't split open under my feet. Instead, I whispered. I deserved to know. The silence that followed was brutal. It sat heavy on the kitchen, thicker than the smell of burnt pancakes, heavier than the sunbeam slanting across the table. Dad scrubbed a hand over his face. "You're right," he said quietly. "You did." Mom crumpled forward, her head in her hands, sobbing. Not pretty, delicate sobs. Ugly, raw, shuddering ones. And me. I just stood there. Frozen. Hurt. Torn. Because as much as I wanted to hate them, I couldn't erase 25 years of bedtime stories, of band-aids on scraped knees, of whispered encouragement at every science fair and spelling bee. I couldn't erase the way Mom kissed my forehead every night, even when we were fighting. The way Dad taught me how to parallel park, even though I almost broke the mailbox twice. I loved them. I hated them. I loved them. Both emotions slammed against each other inside me, tearing me apart at the seams. Dad stood up slowly, like every movement cost him something, and placed a faded manila envelope on the table. "I kept everything they gave us," he said, voice rough. "In case you ever wanted to know." I stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. I wanted to grab it. I wanted to throw it in the fireplace. Instead, I backed away, one step, two, until my back hit the wall. The cold of the drywall against my spine grounded me somehow. I gasped, struggling to breathe. "I need time." Mom lifted her tear-streaked face. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. They didn't try to stop me when I turned and walked out the front door, barefoot and broken, the morning air cool against my skin. The world looked the same. The trees still swayed in the breeze. Cars still rumbled down the street. Some neighbor was mowing his lawn like nothing had happened. But everything inside me had changed. I wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't even sure I wanted to find out who I really was. I didn't go far. Just wandered the streets barefoot. The cool pavement biting into my skin. The manila envelope clutched under my arm like a wound I didn't know how to bandage. I ended up at the abandoned train tracks at the edge of town. A place I hadn't been since I was a teenager, sneaking beers with friends we all knew wouldn't last. The rails were rusted now, swallowed by weeds. The wooden ties splintered and gray like forgotten bones. I sat down on the cold steel, hugging my knees to my chest, the envelope heavy in my lap. The sky was the color of bruises, purple and aching. The wind smelled like rain and metal and old dust. And for the first time in my life I felt like nothing. Not Erin Mitchell, daughter of Tom and Kathy Mitchell. Not Erin, barista at the Beanery Cafe. Not Erin, straight-A student. Former prom committee treasurer. Amateur guitar player, dog lover. Just a girl someone left behind. I pulled out the papers inside the envelope with shaking hands. There weren't many. A copy of the police report. Infant female found at 4:37 a.m. behind St. Agnes Community Hospital. Approximate age 3 days, umbilical cord clamped, otherwise healthy. The ink had bled in places, smudging the words like tears. A tiny blanket, pale yellow, worn thin at the corners. And a hospital intake form listing my physical traits. Brown hair, brown eyes, birthmark on right hip. No name. No clues. Just a blank start. My throat tightened until it hurt. I wasn't given to my parents. I wasn't chosen with joy from a smiling birth mother who wanted a better life for me. I was found, discarded like trash. The thought hollowed me out from the inside, scraping at my ribs until I couldn't breathe. I curled tighter around myself like somehow if I made myself small enough, invisible enough, the pain would miss me. But it didn't. It hit me in brutal waves. Grief for the life I thought I had. Grief for the blood family I would never know. Grief for the little girl bundled up in that yellow blanket, left to the mercy of strangers. Was I not wanted? Was I not enough? Tears blurred the world into a smear of gray and green and brown. I pressed my forehead against my knees and let the sobs rip through me. Raw and heaving and ugly. Around me the world didn't care. The crows cawed in the trees overhead. The weeds rustled under the lazy afternoon wind. A car horn blared somewhere far away. Indifferent to the girl breaking apart on the tracks. I must have sat there for hours. The sun climbed higher, then started to dip, bleeding gold and orange across the sky. The envelope slipped from my lap and scattered across the dirt. I didn't move to gather it. I just sat there empty. The loneliness was a living thing by then, curling around my ankles like smoke. Every memory, every birthday party, every scraped knee, every family dinner felt distant and unreal now, like I was looking through the wrong end of a telescope. Was I even real? Or was I just a collection of their hopes and fears, stitched together to fill a void in their lives? I hated myself for even thinking that. Hated the dark, ugly place my mind had slithered into. But I couldn't stop. I sat there as the night closed in. A girl with no history, no roots, no identity. A ghost. And for a terrifying moment, a dark whisper slithered into my mind. Maybe it would be easier to just let go. The thought scared me more than anything else had. I shivered violently, pulling the ragged yellow blanket tighter around my shoulders. Even though it was too small, even though it smelled like mildew and loss. I wasn't ready to disappear. Not yet. Some tiny ember inside me, smaller than a spark, barely alive, whispered that I was still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. For what, I didn't know. But for something. I forced myself to stand, my legs trembling. Forced myself to pick up the scattered papers with numb fingers. Forced myself to take one step forward, then another. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay buried on those tracks forever. Because no matter what anyone else had decided about me, I was still here. I mattered. Even if I had to claw my way back from nothing to prove it. I didn't go home. Couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I ended up at the diner off Main Street. The one with sticky booths and a neon sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat. I used to come here with Dad after soccer games, still sweaty in my jersey, feeling like the queen of the world even if we lost. Now I just felt like a stranger in my own skin. I slid into a cracked vinyl booth at the back, tucked away where no one would look too closely. The waitress, Jenny, same as always, poured me a cup of coffee without asking. The smell was sharp and bitter, grounding me in a way nothing else could. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug and stared out the window at the darkening street. And that's when it hit me. I was angry. Not the wild, flailing anger from before. Not the gut punch of betrayal. This was different. This was a slow, simmering fury. It curled low in my belly and made everything sharp and clear. They had stolen the truth from me. They had decided, without my consent, that I didn't need to know who I really was. They thought love could erase the facts of my existence. Maybe they hadn't meant to hurt me, but they had. And for once, I wasn't going to swallow it down just to make everyone else comfortable. I pulled the battered envelope from my hoodie pocket and spread the contents out on the table. The report, the blanket, the intake form. I stared at the papers until the words blurred. Until the rage crystallized into something sharper. Resolve. If my life was a puzzle and they had hidden the pieces, then fine. I'd find them myself. No more waiting for answers. No more begging for scraps of truth. I dug out my phone. The screen cracked from when I dropped it on the tracks and started searching. Every missing persons database I could find. Every abandoned infant report from the year I was born. Every article about St. Agnes Hospital's closure. My fingers flew across the screen. Fueled by something deeper than pain now. Fueled by the burning need to know myself. It didn't matter if I found nothing. It didn't matter if every lead dead-ended. What mattered was that for the first time since the truth broke open inside me, I was moving forward. I ordered pancakes because the smell reminded me of home. And right now I needed something, anything that didn't feel tainted. I ate them slowly, each bite anchoring me back into the world. I wasn't broken. I wasn't disposable. I was still here. And I was going to dig until my fingers bled if that's what it took to uncover the pieces of myself that had been buried. The doorbell above the diner's entrance jingled as another customer walked in, bringing a blast of cold night air. I didn't even look up. I was too busy reclaiming my life one keystroke at a time. For the first time since the basement, since the box, since the rain, I didn't feel helpless. I felt alive. It didn't happen all at once. No great epiphany. No magical text popping up with the identity of my birth parents. No sudden click where the pain vanished. Healing came in slow, uneven breaths. In tiny, stubborn steps. 2 weeks after that night at the diner, I stood on the front porch of my parents' house. Still my parents, whether my blood said so or not, holding the manila envelope against my chest. The porch light buzzed faintly above me. Moths batted themselves stupid against the bulb, circling, falling, circling again. I almost turned around. Almost let fear win. Almost let anger keep building walls around me. Thicker and colder. But then I thought about all the nights Mom sat up with me through fevers, singing off-key lullabies. Thought about Dad at every spelling bee, shouting so loud the judges winced. Thought about the yellow blanket, not as a symbol of abandonment but survival. I pressed the doorbell. It opened almost immediately. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. Dad stood behind her, hands shoved deep into his pockets, guilt written across every line of his face. I didn't wait for them to speak. "I'm not ready to forget," I said, voice shaking but strong. "I don't even know if I'm ready to forgive." Mom's eyes filled instantly, brimming without spilling. Dad looked like he might break apart if I breathed wrong. "But I know you loved me," I continued, gripping the envelope so hard the corners bent. "And I loved you. I love you. That's real." Mom let out a sob, a raw, desperate sound, and reached for me. This time I didn't pull away. I let her wrap her arms around me, awkward and trembling. Let Dad crowd in too, his hand clamping awkwardly on my back. We stood there on the porch like that, not perfect, not fixed, but together. I knew we'd never be the same. There would always be a scar where the truth tore us open. But scars meant healing. Scars meant survival. Later, inside over mugs of Too Strong coffee, I told them about my search. About how I wasn't looking to replace them, only to fill in the blank spaces where my story had been stolen. Dad cried openly. Mom held my hand so tight my fingers went numb. They promised to help. To be there. To tell the whole truth this time, no matter how ugly. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't easy. Some nights I still woke up with my chest caving in, wondering who had left me and why. Some days I still felt like a girl with no roots. But more and more I realized, roots aren't just about blood. They're about choice. And my parents, my real parents, chose me every day. The past wasn't something I could erase or rewrite. But it didn't have to define me either. I was more than where I started. More than a baby left in the night. More than the lies that tried to smother me. I was Erin Mitchell. Daughter. Fighter. Survivor. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't lost anymore.